right, I want to welcome everybody to the City of Westminster Historic District Commission meeting. It is Wednesday, June 7th, 2023 at 7 o'clock. And we are here at City Hall at 1838 Emerald Hill Lane in Westminster, Maryland. I'm going to call this to order with a roll call real quick, and we'll start down here.
Josh Ambrose.
Chris Amador, Mr. McMaster's chair.
Kevin Wagman.
And any staff member wants to say that here.
Mark Depot, the Director of Community Planning and Development.
Melissa Thorne, Economic Development Coordinator.
Thank you. So we're going to start with our statement of authority. The Westminster Historic District Commission derives its authority from Chapter 164, Article 9A of the City Code, which is authorized by the Maryland Code Annotated Land Use Article Division 1, Single Jurisdiction Planning and Zoning, Title 8, Historic Preservation. The qualifications of the Westminster Historic District Commission are on file at the City Administration Building at 45 West Main Street, and the file is open to the public. So have you all had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes, I make a motion, we accept the minutes from March 1st, 2023 as written.
Second. Any discussion about the March 1st minutes? Hearing none, I'll ask for an acceptance of March 1st. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. How about February 1st? Do I hear a motion for February 1st?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of February 1st. To 2023.
Right. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are passed. Melissa, I think they're here and signed.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. So we got our minutes done. That's item number 2. Let's go to item number 3, old business. So the historic implementation plan is still moving forward. Melissa and I think we're going to be working for an August 1st deadline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should get together.
Yeah. To fill out the grant application, found a non-capital application from the state of Maryland. And not only should we fill it out, but you need time to get letters of support and any possible funding. So if I were to put a rough schedule, Melissa, we should have a draft that someone else could read really by the first week of July. So we have 3 weeks to let it simmer and people say, this doesn't make sense, or a human person can't understand what's said, or you could do so much better if you just go this way. And usually if there's a deadline for submittals for both the letter of intent and then also draft, where they'll look at it and they'll say, we won't fund that, or that's got no chance. So maybe really quick, you and I should sit down together and see what those deadlines are.
Look at your schedule for next week and we can chat tomorrow
Okay.
on the phone. Take a day.
Okay. The one thing I've been collecting up is history of town, put in with our submission, because I do have a map of where Irish Town was in Westminster, which I think is totally cool. I got that out of the Historical Society. And there should be other things like that that we can find in town. So if you guys have anything toss in the hopper that could go into our mapping program and inventory program, that would be great. Great fun. The National 250th Anniversary. I think I speak for the commission when I say we're committed to doing something with the City of Westminster. And we're now just sort of beginning to think about planning. The commission agrees that we should mark that auspicious date of 250th of our American Revolution in some big way. And so we're going to be looking now for more information from our public We've asked the city to consider supplying us with an email and some space on our website, asking the public for ideas, and then also putting in a request to the public on the sewer and water bill for ideas. And we've had a few tonight. Is there anything that anyone would like to share with the public as just a preliminary thoughts?
I think there's an opportunity for a lot of people to collaborate.
I think so too. I think there's also great opportunity for historical vignettes that talk about the resources right here in town that were here for the 250th and afterwards. So I would love to see us focus on history and history on Main Street. History anywhere in the city would be great. Any other ideas from anyone we want to pop off now? All right, so we're going to pursue that and ask our public to help us out with thinking about really legacy projects as well as celebratory projects. Celebrations are great, but also it'd be nice if in 10 years somebody could come along and see what we did. Okay, great. Anything else on that topic, folks? All right, new business. We have a tax credit before us for 23 North Center Street. Are we expecting the landowner to come?
I'm not sure where they are this evening and why they're not here. However, do you typically go forward? Have you had this instance where
Sure.
a representative? Okay,
Sure, we can move forward,
okay.
especially since we did talk with the landowner in the last month or two.
It was last month.
It was
Right.
last month, so we've had an opportunity to work with them. All right, so Melissa, you get to present.
I will present and I will do a quick screen share because I have pictures of, let's think it's probably this one. All right. It's challenging with all of these things up here. Here we go. And we'll go back. Minimize. Okie dokie. No thanks. Here we go. All right. This is a image of, this would look very familiar to most of you, 23 North Center Street. So we have a historic rehabilitation property tax credit pre-construction application. And we're calling this TC-23-01, being in our first of 2003. DBAD LLC, the applicant and property owner, is requesting this tax credit to complete interior and exterior improvements to the existing house and to add approximately 752 square foot 2-story addition to the rear of the commercial building. It's in the B business zone and is about 20 feet southeast of Center Street and Winter Street intersection. Here's a photo on a map to show. Just out of the downtown district, but still within the Westminster Historic District. A little bit of background pursuant to the City of Westminster zoning ordinance section 143-5A. A City of Westminster real property tax credit in the amount of 10% of the qualified expenses for the restoration and preservation of an eligible historic property and 5% of the qualified expenses for the construction of an architecturally compatible new structure on an eligible historic property. In order to determine if this tax credit is valid, it's up to the board to determine if this is an eligible property. I have listed, 1, 2, and 3 on the staff report here. Properties located within the city's local historic district, either individually on the National Register or contributing properties located within a National Register district. And as we know, this property does lie in the Westminster Historic District, as I just mentioned. I also have listed, pursuant to the zoning ordinance section, eligible work must be done as a part of this, including A through E. On May 24th, 2023, we received this tax credit application from Carmen Leonardson, who is the Marketing Center Administrator for Keller Williams Realty Partners for this property owner of 23 North Center Street. And to give you a project description, it is our Department of Community Planning and Development's understanding that this applicant is proposing to, one, replace all exterior siding with white horizontal siding. Two, move the existing front door from its current location and install a new double glass front door at the front steps. Three, remove the large front window and replace with two repurposed windows to match the remaining front windows. Four, paint the front porch. Five, landscape the front yard. Six, install a new black metal roof. Seven, build an approximate 752 square foot two-story addition to the rear of the building. Eight, install an ADA compliant ramp and update the bathroom for ADA compliancy. Nine, and final, install an all-new HVAC plumbing and electrical in the building, as well as a French drain in the basement. And attachment one has a more detailed description of the proposed project. The applicant received two cost estimates for the project and one electrical plumbing and design narrative to complement a cost estimate. Door Contractors has proposed $254,956 for their estimate for all of this scope, and Stone Street Construction $352,956 for the work. I will comment that Shore Contractors was the one chosen for the work. And also as an attachment is their business license. And after further inspection of our application, we're really looking for their MHIC license number, which I don't currently have, but I have reached out to the applicant for, and they produced the business license. So I believe that that needs to be looked into prior to the award for the tax credit. So the Department of Community Planning and Development recommends that the commission review the proposed pre-construction application of historic rehabilitation property tax credit TC 2301 and determine whether the property is an eligible property. And number two, the proposed work as outlined in attachment one qualifies as eligible work under section 143-5B.
All right, so let's start out with those two recommendations and ask if the commissioners feel this is an eligible project. Make a motion if you do.
I believe that we determined that last meeting, so I'll make a motion that this is an eligible project.
Second,
All in favor?
I,
And then what was the second recommendation, Melissa?
That the proposed work as outlined in attachment one qualifies as eligible work under section 143-5B. So looking at the scope of Shore Contractors LLC.
So I noticed that they took all of our recommendations from last meeting, and I thought that's great, but I'm gonna ask for a motion for this second recommendation from somebody.
I have, wait, this one is a question. Is this the? Okay, so is whose rendering is this?
I
I
think
think
that
that's the one that they didn't take.
Okay.
Overall.
We'll also comment there is a rendering from 2 Point. And it's a little hard to see on the copy, but all of the siding is now horizontal, not vertical as shown in the rendering.
So I guess
it says right here, horizontal.
right, that I know that's great that they, but my question is. The original window casings are white. And these are black. So. Is this, I don't think Karen McMaster's is that,
We don't normally comment on colors,
okay,
color palettes.
okay,
That's one thing we pretty, because it's reversible.
okay,
They find that that's not a color that works for them.
okay, it's just us.
Any other notices, concerns, ideas?
I think her point is actually a good one because the rendering makes it look like a much more modern.
Like farmhouse.
Yeah.
The old farmhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, and
And I mean, who knows if they're gonna put shutters on, they should put shutters back on.
If they don't have them now.
Oh, I thought they were.
Yeah,
They have
they
them now.
do.
Yeah. That's it.
now,
We should read.
one of those historic shutters, no, I don't think so. I think they're, aluminum.
But I'm sure they had shutters. Don't you think they had shutters on the house?
I would think so, but normally if you don't have good documentation on what those shutters are, you don't take the jump with making up history.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I do think that they. I'm not a big fan of fake shutters, so like, I don't want to opinion too loudly here, but. There's not, it takes a historic building and with the color and with the lack of shutters, I think it looks. Very modern.
Yeah. I agree.
All right.
I think it looks like an improvement, so, there's that.
The fine line is, are we preserving the fabric of the building? Is it reversible? Could someone come along and add the shutters again?
I tend not to care too much about too many defined details, but I actually think this point is very accurate on the windows, like. Black casement windows, that's usually, that's not just paint, that's usually. A
Right.
metal or plastic choice, and it's often not paintable, and I do think it significantly alters. The look of this particular building, and it is not historic in the slightest.
Yeah, and we know that the windows that are being moved are historic. So they are the right material, but they won't look it. Okay.
My question is, did you notice that the roof is to be painted black? So that would then, to me, look modern too much. Most of the roofs around here, if you scan Main Street, they are gray. I would say it's 9 out of 10. So I don't know if that is significant to others, but again, the black around the windows would make it look modern. So maybe that is the intent. I don't know if it's historic intent.
Well, again, we normally don't comment on the paint choices of the roofs or the color of the powder coat on the roof. However, that doesn't mean we couldn't have conditions. We would approve this if the metal color was the same. We would approve this if the casements were the same. We can do that approval, and then if that's a make or break thing.
Melissa, do you have the rendering, architectural rendering that you can?
Do I want the screen?
Yeah.
See there.
It looks like a brand new house. Cause I'm looking like, why does it look so modern? It's like, oh, it's the
So much. Well, we can put requests that, not requests, conditions that say the shutters have to be reinstalled and the roof has to be gray. And that's how we'll support this.
And with the black casement or white case, yeah. I mean, to me, that like they're getting, it's tax credit to keep the continuity of the historic continuity, and that does not look historic.
to me. Okay, well said. So somebody make a recommendation. Oh, wait, how are we doing here? Post. Line qualifies as, so although it qualifies as eligible work, or can we get through that much and then we say how the work has to be?
No, I think we are saying. Color to me is like material. I think they go hand in hand.
But I'm trying to get to the next motion. So is the next motion, the proposed work in attachment 1 qualifies as eligible work under this. The work does, but we're still gonna put a condition on it. So we need a third motion. So I'm asking the city to make sure I'm not leading us astray. If we approve recommendation number 2, we still need to come up with a motion that recommends conditions to the approval. Or if we approve number 2, the conditions have to go on the approval.
Well, you'd be granted the conditional approval subject to whatever conditions you want to apply to that approval.
And then the next topic is the actual tax credit amount.
Okay,
So the first one is just for the, you can put a conditional approval on the scope,
right.
and then we'll.
We already approved number 1. The
Okay.
property is eligible. I'm looking at number 2's recommendation. If we approve it as written, can we still put a condition on it? Or is this the place where the conditions go in with this recommendation?
It would go with this recommend, so somebody would have to recommend approval to grant certificate eligibility for historic tax credit and the amount of subject, whatever the amounts are subject to 1, the roof being gray, and 2, so you would do it as part of that approval.
So-
Whoever's gonna make the motion. I would like to point out.
Yeah, I'm
So they did number 1,
Yeah,
another on number 2, and then if they deem 2 to have any eligible work, we move on to this last section.
yes,
So if we approve the recommendation number 2 submitted by staff, we still have a chance to submit conditions.
Yes.
yes.
Yes,
Good, because I don't want us to approve something and then have to backtrack.
And
So,
then we approve item number 2 is presented.
is there a second?
Second,
Right, so on the floor is just that this work is outlined in general is eligible. All agree, say aye.
I,
So that motion passes. So next, the motion should be that we approve this tax credit request with conditions that include the roof must be the same color as existing and the shutters be reinstalled and the casements be white.
I wonder if we need to prioritize that list somehow. I don't want to do separate motions, but for me, for example. I agree the roof should probably be gray. I agree the windows should probably be a different color, but I mean, like the shutters alone would make a huge difference on it looking historic. I mean, to me, that's the biggest. And again, I say this as someone who's not a fan of shutters, so universe take it with a healthy grain of salt. But like, if our goal is to maintain the historic aesthetic and the continuity of the house, I think the shutters are non-negotiable at this point for the tax credits, or unless some other argument is made. The roof, I would recommend it, but I don't know that we need to require it personally, but I defer to the rest.
I think that, this seems to be like this style, which is nice within in new construction. I don't mind it, but that's not the point of the Historic District Commission and all the tax credits. And the roof is going to be painted black to complement the black window casings, that's why that's done, so I think it should just stand as it is, I don't think it's gonna cost any, I'm assuming it won't cost any more or less to either paint gray or black or whatever it is that they do.
I think they're ordering materials, so it's powder coated in the back.
Okay, so hopefully they didn't order anything.
I guess my question is, if maybe Melissa, you can shed some light here on how far we are in the process, but. You know, if they came back to us and said, we'll do these two things, but we won't do this third thing, are we saying no?
We're giving conditions.
Right, so my question to my fellow commissioners is, are we saying all three are lying in the sand?
So also what I'm hearing you say, number one should be the shutters, number two, maybe the roof, number three, window casement. To priority of what we want.
Those are all three make or break, or is there one of the three and the other two could be recommendation?
I could agree with him about shutters, but I also think if 90% are gray color, that we should go with gray because we are like the same. And what, like your comment, to me, that would be more historic.
Well, I also think that a black roof, the black casings and no shutters is whatever style they're going for. So it has to be all one or all the other. I don't think you can mix and match, because I think if you,
Yeah.
if you put shutters with the black casing, I don't think that's gonna work.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, like, make it look one way or the other, not just cobble something together and make it look worse. Like, pick a style, and if they, want the tax credit, then it should look like the original house as much as it can. Because, I mean, we did this with, another applicant came, and it was the same farmhouse style with the horizontal or the vertical, the vertical, whatever, and the black, whatever, and they changed, but it's just, so every time there's a trend, people are gonna wanna do that, and I think they don't understand is part of it, so.
Yeah.
Can I ask one other question about the rendering? Is it just a trick of the perspective, or is the front porch roof? It looks almost like flat in that rendering. Is that just a mistake? Or?
I think it's a trick of perspective,
Okay.
because the existing roof does have a tilt and they're just building onto the existing line, so I can't imagine they do a flat roof. That would just be a terrible thing.
Can you go back one more slide?
There's the elevations to show you the roof side.
It's peaked. It's like slate the gradual.
Yeah, I'm just making sure that it was consistent with what's there already.
All right, so I'm gonna ask for a motion to accept this tax credit with 3 conditions. One being that the shutters are retained and the windows that have them. And that the casement colors remain the colors that they are, white. And that the new roofing material approximates the gray roofing color that there is now. Is that what I understand the table to want?
Yes, I think that with then moving the windows and replacing that bay window, there might need to be some discussion that they have about how to design that. Because when you look at the spacing there, I'm not sure that they're gonna be big enough for dual shutters. And how that gets integrated will need to be a discussion, but separate conversation.
All right, so does someone want to make the motion that I just made up?
I make a motion that we accept this proposal. With 3 conditions, and the conditions are the original shutter. Keep the window casements, make it white, and the roof must be gray.
Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed? Did you get that clearly, Melissa?
I did, and I will be reviewing the video again to make sure. But there's one other motion we should talk about.
Okay.
Well, Mark, I had 3 listed on here. Should I do for the top first and then make sure, or do we bypass the top one already? We want to list the actual contractor, right?
We need to determine which estimate they're gonna accept the tax credit is gonna be based off of.
It didn't there.
And the type of tax credit, so they did, but it would be nice to have this body say it.
Also, you mentioned earlier, we have a business license, but we don't have a contractor number.
Yes.
So again, none of that is eligible. We have that.
Right.
So is that a requirement of the city or is that a condition we need to put on?
It's a requirement of the code that they have to have a contracting license.
We can stay silent on that, Kevin. Because the city will enforce its code.
So what we're looking at now, and I'll just share kind of as written. The Department of Community Planning and Development recommends that the commission determine whether the estimated project cost of $254,956 with Shore Contractors LLC as determined by this commission is accurate and acceptable, like to choose of them. And then to approve and grant this tax credit in the amount of up to, and then there's number 2 or number 3. So with this scope as it's presented, the new addition section is included. There are some breakouts, but some are kind of in with the existing. So does the commission want to approve the full 10% tax credit? Which would only be as listed in section 143-5A. It's the restoration and preservation of an eligible historic property. And then 5% is of the qualified expenses for new construction. So if they're able to show the license number and also that the work is separated, is there a desire to just do 5% on the whole project? Because you know it includes new construction and it's not separated, or give them the opportunity to break it apart?
You know, I've been doing some tough thinking and trying to remember back when we set that 5% stuff up. And honestly, I think the intention of the program was to put 5% towards wholly new buildings that we're doing infill. But to understand that new stuff has to go into part of your retrofitting and rehabbing older buildings is just an accepted part of rehab. I don't have a vote here and I don't have really voice, but I would just for a minute take a point of privilege and say, to me, something like this is just integrated enough. It's not a standalone garage, it's not a standalone building. It's integrated enough to warrant the entire 10%. That's my thought. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Yes.
If I could real quick, something to think about, regardless if it's 5% or 10%, either case, it's gonna most likely exceed what they're actually eligible for. I just did a quick estimate that it looks like they pay about $1,400 in taxes a year. Times 5 years is your maximum amount of tax credit, gets you to around the $7,000 mark. So whether you go 5%, which is $12,747, or 10%, which is $25,495, at the end of the day, whatever you're approving, the percentage still can't exceed the maximum of the taxes per year up to 5 years.
So let's not make them miserable by figuring out which line is which.
Exactly, but I think we're making the stance of 10% that this would count. 10% is still a valid decision as part of your approval. So in the future, we can always make that point as we move forward.
I'm really trying to think, you know, if it's standalone new structure sort of from the bottom up at the 5%, but we have to understand that new materials are coming in, new walls are going up, replacing old walls and things like that. So that's my thought. What do you guys think?
That was just an assumption, so.
Josh, you're quiet.
Okay.
So we need a motion to say that the entire amount from Shore Properties is acceptable of 254 something and change. What's the number, Melissa?
254,956.
Do I have a motion to that effect? Do I have a motion to that effect?
I make a motion that we accept Shore Contractors LLC's proposal of $254,956 as written. With a 10% tax credit.
I'll second.
Third,
Great, sounds like we have consensus, all in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
Yes, we have consensus, thank you.
I have a question. Shore Contractors, it says Carroll Road, Maryland. Where are they located?
I did look them up, are they like Southern Maryland, maybe? I can't recall.
It just says Maryland, 21122. I was just like,
There's a place, they really do exist.
very.
All right, well, Melissa, do you have any other goals for us as far as motions for this project? No, we're in the clear on this.
Yep.
And I do like the fact you wrote them out. That's a good practice so that we can just read them as a motion that these guys should offer to the table. That would really work nicely, so good. All right, so hearing no other business on this tax credit, we're going to move on to commissioner report. So we're gonna start with Josh. Nothing to report. I do have a report where, we've got a new 250th meeting coming up from the Civil War Heritage area, planned in the end of June. It's gonna be virtual. Have you heard about this? All right, so when I get the invite, I'll send it through to Melissa, who'll send it through to everybody. And if you have time, just dial in and you can hear about 250th plans and whatever I plan on telling them from Carroll County, Frederick County, and Washington. And those things are always recorded, so you can check in later if you don't have time that very moment. My big report. How about it, Karen?
nothing for me, thank you.
Anything from?
Beer and barbecue is next Saturday, so that's important for anybody watching downtown.
Can I ask how you're gonna barbecue beer? Is it gonna be in a can or
And
just
barbecue,
pre-arranged?
and not barbecue beer. I'm sorry, beer and barbecue. I apologize. And last night, before the Board of Zoning Appeals, they did hear Hair of the Dog, HEIR, of the Dog Brewery, moving into 41 West Main Street, the old Pomeroy, case right at the corner. And there was a Brook Owens real estate agency. So they did get their approval for the special exceptions, so they're moving forward. So hopefully
Are they gonna get the water?
I was gonna say, they have enough water for brewing.
we will make sure we find water. And that's what's interesting. A lot of people believe there's a lot of water usage.
Yeah.
But when you look at, just as an example, if you brew 5,000 gallons a year, each gallon takes about 7 gallons of water. So multiply that, 35,000 gallons a year. When you divide that by number of days, because we do it by gallons per day, it really reduces. As an example, the distillery was allocated, I think, 189 gallons a day for distilling and making spirit. So again, it's not as much as people believe it is. In a lot of cases, I would see it's less than a single family house for just the brewing aspect per day to produce that many gallons. So I think that's the misnomer that people believe that it takes a lot of water, but in the end of the day, when you again divide it by the number of days out of the year, it's rather low. So we
Every
do
microbrewery program says it takes a lot of water to do this.
7 gallons per gallon produced. But again, when you divide that out throughout the year, the gallons per day is
That's
not, so we will find water and have water for the brewery downtown. We were really trying to earmark water for downtown Westminster for reuse and change of use and especially for residential multifamily in the future.
Thank you, Michael. It's always interesting to talk to you. Always learn something new. Miss Melissa.
It's been a busy month and I'm trying to think of what's been going on. We had a meeting this morning with, I think it was the Maryland Department of Planning and Preservation Maryland. With just the state and the different counties or municipalities, and we had the opportunity to let them know that we're working on our update for the implementation and learned that some of the challenges they're having in other areas are not so dissimilar to what we experience. They talked, so the Maryland Department of Planning is working on their preservation planning right now. Like they updated, I think it's for 2023 through 2028 or 2024 through, no, 2031, whatever the next 8-year stretch is for the governor that they're working on. So we'll look into that. And one other thought I just had actually about the remaining funds for the commission, because there was such a good response on the brochures, we could print some more of those, like professionally and the whole thing. So I can find a copy of who did them last, and because I had recreated it for what our printers could do. So we had to cut some out. So this would be before we're creating this nice update, the retooling for the 250th. We'll get some nice copies of the existing ones. Okay.
And real quick, the book that Kevin requests that we try to, we can't find it anywhere, so the next step is maybe reaching out to the actual publisher.
Yeah.
To see if they still have it available for copies.
Is that the Bob Porterhouse book?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
funny. The next day I went on and there were 2 copies. The design people for both of them. So then it appeared there was 1 copy if you wanted to pay $837. So I walked up to the Historic Society and said, "Do you have any of these?" And then when he said no, but when I walked out, he followed me and said, "Well, there is the one on eBay or Amazon for $800. I said, "Thank you."
So I followed up on the Bob Porterhouse book too. And, because I told you all, oh, just go to the historical society. Well, they really are on like, eBay for $385 or something when I looked. And I talked with some folks at the Historical Society because they're the ones who sold them exclusively for Bob Porter. He's passed on, and so is his widow. But it's possible that a son would allow the Historical Society to reprint.
Oh.
And but that is not a high priority. It's like a possibility, not a likelihood.
Even a small world. 2 weeks later, I bought one for $357. The same book.
Yeah,
Did you purchase it or you just saw it?
No, I bought it. It was on Amazon.
$300.
No, $3.57 cost more to ship than I paid for it.
I mean, I can't believe there's plenty of copies floating around in people's attics, you know, where people are like, can we just get rid of Grandma's books? You know, they have no idea there's a $400 book of the history of Westminster.
Again, as you know, on eBay or places like that, they can ask whatever. It doesn't mean they ever will get that.
Well, I have 2 copies and I'm planning on funding my retirement that way, my dotage.
that's $1,600 right there, and that's a nice vacation.
Thank you. Look forward to it. Well, if there's no other business, shall we agree to adjourn? Everybody? Yeah.
Amen.
All right.